look, we all have to live. We all have to eat. I'm not telling people to be, throw caution to the wind, but at the same time, you also have to take action. If you want to take massive action, or if you want to actually do this, you have to take massive action. Eventually, you're going to have to make a decision.
You're listening to Investing for Good, a show that brings you the stories and strategies of people who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. And now, here are your hosts, Annie Dickerson and Julie Lamb.
Hey, Julie, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How about you?
Great. Well, as of this recording, we have just returned from Nashville, where we were at the Funnel Hacking Live conference. And I don't know about you, but it was like drinking from a fire hose.
Yep, I was totally, we both were drinking that Kool-Aid real hard. It was, I think the thing, that got me when we went there that was so surprising in a good way was seeing that everybody there they all had a story, a really good story, which I've now learned is part of the framework, but they all have a really great story of wanting to make an impact and change lives. And I thought I was going to go there and learn about, funnels and how people use them in their businesses. I don't even know if we did talk about that a little bit, but so much of the event was focused around making an impact and how people are changing entrepreneurship and how people are changing lives.
Yeah.
And, that resonates so much with us and what we do. So.
Yeah. And so for those of you who are listening who may not know, so Funnel Hacking Live is it's a marketing conference, essentially, that's put on by Russell Brunson and the ClickFunnels team. And basically, it's an opportunity for entrepreneurs from all over the world, really, to come together and talk about the latest advances in marketing and how to use funnels to really help their customers, or our investors in our case, to really learn what they need to know and to take action to get to their goals. And so I think we learned so much at the conference about the psychology behind how funnels work and how they really help people, like you were saying, to reach that goal that they want.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just it right there, is to have that reach. I mean, if you have a really amazing product that nobody ever knows about, how can you ever reach people? And that's like so, critical to changing lives is, people need to know that that product even exists. And so it was such a great event, and proud to be official ClickFunnels
funnel hacker.
Official funnel hacker and part of the ClickFunnels family. So excited about that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about today's guest, because he is definitely one that's making an impact on the world. He's doing so much, and he had such humble beginnings. Todd Dexheimer, he's the CEO of Venture D Properties, and he's also the host of a popular podcast that's got over 200 episodes now. It's called Pillars of Wealth Creation. And Todd has a really unique story. He started out as a high school teacher and then realized that it wasn't quite the right fit for him, and then got into real estate, first sort of dabbling and sort of getting into it little by little, and then really scaling his portfolio over the last 10 years to now over $35 million in real estate assets, which is such an incredible journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I loved that he had shared with us kind of his 3 takeaways from his Pillars of Wealth Creation podcast, where, he's heard, over 200 guests talk again and again about their experiences and how they've, generated so much wealth over the years. And it was interesting to hear that. It's always interesting because I'm such a believer of when you hear a pattern and when you hear people say things over and over again, and you can condense it down into the top 3, it's almost like a no-brainer that if you follow that strategy that, you could get to the same result as well. So yeah. And then, him talking about pushing his kids was so interesting because I am totally the helicopter mom, totally guilty of that. I go to bed at night feeling guilty. And so it was so good to hear him talk about how he pushes his kids, in different areas of life. And I think that is, so applicable to becoming an adult and in business and being able to expand your horizons and not be afraid of taking a little bit of risk. So great episode.
Yeah, so definitely listen out for that. Todd's pillars of wealth creation and also how he's making an impact. Here it is. Enjoy this episode with Todd Dexheimer. Todd, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Great. We're excited to jump into this conversation.
Absolutely.
Now, Todd, these days you own over $35 million in real estate assets, which is incredible. And that includes 550 multifamily units and 25,000 square feet of office and retail across multiple states. Now, that's hugely impressive, and we'll definitely get into all of that and how you've been able to build such an impressive portfolio. But to start, take us back to the beginning, before you had ever invested a single dime into real estate, before you even knew that this whole real estate investing thing was a thing. Back then you were teaching high school. Is that right?
Yeah, I was a high school and middle school industrial technology teacher. So I was teaching wood shop and metals and, the architecture and all that kind of stuff. So it was, so it was some fun, definitely, but it was very quickly actually my teaching career that I was like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up, because I realized it just wasn't quite for me. There was some stuff I loved about it, and then there was some of the other stuff.
And so how long were you teaching before you had this realization that maybe this wasn't a lifetime career for you?
I don't know, like 3 days. Seriously,
me too.
It was pretty quick. It was like, it would have been within my first 2 years of teaching for sure. Because I remember sitting in our first house that my wife and I lived in. And I remember sitting there and saying that to her, like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up. This isn't it. And I think it was in my first year of teaching, quite frankly.
Wow. So you had gone to school to become a teacher, and you got your first job as a teacher. You're a few days in, maybe your first year in, you're like, wait a second, this isn't the right fit for me. Right. So then what? Were you thinking like, maybe I'll find a different job or teach somewhere else, teach something different? What were you thinking at that point?
Yeah. So, I looked at potentially like going back to school. I thought about becoming a doctor for a little while. But I had read a lot of entrepreneurial books, and so I graduated in the winter. So I had the winter until the next school year to, substitute teach. So I did a substitute teaching. When you substitute teach, you're like a babysitter, right? So I'd sit there and I'd read entrepreneurial books. I read a lot of like the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series and other stuff while I was substitute teaching, and really enjoyed those. And so as I'm kind of like exploring different things, I'm reading these books, and I'm getting more and more interested in that, and started reading some real estate books. And once I hit on the real estate books, I'm going, this is something I think I could do. Like, this had already a construction background. So it kind of made a lot of sense to me. I understood numbers. So that made a lot of sense. So that's kind of, I think, really what set me to go, maybe I won't go back to school and become a doctor. I'll start seeing if I can do this. And as I kind of read more and more and just got more involved in it, I just got more and more passionate about it and like obsessed about it. And eventually it just became like, this is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about that. Tell us about how, like, what was the first thing that you did? So you read all the books and you're like, okay, this is something I can do. Tell us about the first deal that you did.
Yeah. So the first deal, so let me like tell people, look, it didn't happen overnight. Right. So this is like a whole process. And I started becoming really obsessed in like 2007. And I didn't buy my first property until summer of 2008. I actually 3 properties pretty much all at once. I bought one for my wife and I to live in that I don't know what you call it. We renovated it. It was a foreclosure. We renovated. Is that house hacking? I don't know what people call. I don't know those terms.
What the kids call it.
Yeah,
these
what
days.
the kids call it these days. But so I bought this. We bought this foreclosure, and we ended up buying another foreclosure to rent. So we fixed that up, and then we bought another property with a partner to renovate and flip. So we bought like I said, we bought like 3 at one time. And just dove right in.
And what market was this?
This was in Minneapolis, Twin Cities area.
Okay.
So it was, right during the foreclosure crisis. So it was a great time to get into it, but a terrible time, right? I mean, depends on who you ask. Everybody just got foreclosed on.
Yeah.
So everybody's losing their properties. Property values were plummeting.
Mm-hmm.
You would buy a property for $60K. You'd be all in for, let's call it $100K. And you'd think, I got $20,000, $30,000 worth of equity, $50,000 worth of equity. And before you could blink, it was all of a sudden you had like $1 worth of equity. And now all of a sudden you're negative $20,000 of equity.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to really move fast, and you had to establish good cash flow right away, because properties were plummeting in value.
Mm-hmm,
it was definitely a different time, and financing was extremely tough too. And that was definitely a challenge throughout kind of my early days, was getting the money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So did you guys have money saved already at that point, or how did you do those first deals? Because I know for some people, that's always like the hurdle, right? They're always like, well, I don't have any money. How do I do this? And you don't, as we know now, looking backwards, we know you don't need to have the money to get into the deals. But tell us a little bit about that.
So we had about $20,000.
Okay.
And you're like, wait a minute. We had like $20,000 saved up, maybe 30.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but not very much. And my wife, bless her, for allowing me to spend every last penny of ours, because that's what happened. We bought our first house with an FHA 203K loan, which allowed us to get into it for really cheap. And then it allows us to do the construction for cheap. I had contractor contacts that allowed me to basically do that for a good price, and get into it for very, very little money out of my pocket. And then we bought that rental, and basically used every last penny to buy that rental. And the flip, I partner with a guy. So with that flip, that was none of my own money either. So I was just able to get in there and squeeze my way in and figure out different ways to get in the door. And so with that rental, then I met a guy who said, hey, let's refinance this thing. We refinanced it, and I was able to pull every last penny out of it, plus another like $10,000, $15,000 to be able to roll with and do more deals.
So the first to the second home, how did you so you bought the first home for you to live in that? A lot of people do that. That makes sense. It's easy for people to understand. What was the time frame that you bought the first, second, and third house? Was that within a few months, within a year?
Within a few weeks.
Within a few weeks.
Yeah.
So
maybe days. I mean, it was like bam, 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 bam.
So do you think it was because you had read all of these books and you were
I was
pretty
so
confident?
Obsessed. Yeah.
You were
I was
just
very confident. From June through August, when I finally bought these properties, I was going to see 20 properties a day. I remember driving around still with Carlton sheets in the background and the cassette tape, and looking for these properties. And so it wasn't hey, these things just came one day.
Yeah.
Well, it ended up happening that way, but I mean, there was a lot of work beforehand.
Yeah.
And what were you looking for when you were looking at all these different properties?
Half the time I didn't even know. I don't think you know when you first begin, but yeah, I honestly, number one is I wanted a rental property, and I wanted something that I could build equity. I worked my way through college working remodeling construction. So I knew I could do it. I knew I could hire people to do it. I knew the costs. So when somebody would try to tell me it's going to be X price, and I knew look, this is going to take you 6 hours. I knew the price. So it was really easy for me to kind of establish that. And so I was looking for dumps. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for something that I thought I could build a bunch of equity, and at least whether the market went down another 20, 30K, at least I'd be break even type of thing. And then cash flow. Like I wanted cash flow. And so the timing was great for cash flow because you were able to buy a single family house and be all in for, 80 grand or 100 grand, and you could rent that out for $1,400 a month.
It's crazy.
So yeah, it's crazy. And you guys are in California, so you're mean.
Yeah.
but
you need to.
But yeah, I mean, it was great.
Yeah. In California, it's like you add one more zero to the purchase price and take away one more zero for like the rental price.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, so during this time, so you had these 3 properties and you were still teaching. This was your first year of teaching, right?
No, it wasn't my first year of teaching. So I started teaching in 2000. So it would have been my 3rd year, maybe.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So you were into it. So, but you were still working your full-time job and you were doing this on the side.
Yes. Yeah.
And was that manageable, or did you find that, like, how much time were you putting into the real estate?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was manageable. I'd wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd teach till 3 or whatever. I'd get off of teaching and I'd go to these properties and I would work until 2 o'clock in the morning and then do it again the next day. So,
yeah,
plenty of time. Weekends and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't tell you this. We had our first child kind of during a lot of this chaos. So she was born. I guess it would have been slightly after we started, but it kind of in this whole chaos of just getting established, working full time still.
Yeah.
And so you were doing this round the clock. Like, what kept you going? Like, what was that vision? You were like, this is what I'm going for, and this is what I want in the long term that makes this grind worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see, first of all, I could see the value in it. I could see, what it was able to provide me in the future. And second of all, I just loved it. Like every day was fantastic. Even though I was putting all these hours, it was just, every day was, that's what I looked forward to. I was just obsessed with it. I loved it. And so I think that was a big driver is I really, really enjoyed it. And then the second thing is I saw what it was creating and I understood what could be very early on. And so I wanted to establish that. And it honestly didn't take too long to where I was able to quit my job. As a teacher, I know this might surprise people, but you don't make a lot of money. So,
so was that your plan? So your plan was to get all these were you planning on getting a whole bunch of these small properties and then you wouldn't have to work? Was that the idea?
That's a long time ago. I know like for me, I wasn't like in a hurry necessarily quit, but yeah, I knew eventually I was going to be done. Originally the goal was just to buy big apartment buildings, but I didn't know how to do it. And so houses came naturally. Like I remember sitting first of all, I read a book by Ken McElroy and I was like, oh, apartments, they make a lot of sense, and then I'm going, geez, I don't have like $2 million to buy this apartment, like $5 million to buy this apartment. Like I can't do that, so I was young. I had no connections. I didn't know how to do stuff like that. So single family houses made sense. I had $20,000. There's a lot more education now. I think even back then, 2008, there wasn't nearly as much education. So yeah, it was just a way to do it, I think, more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us where you're at right now. I mean, obviously you're not still at 3 houses. You scaled a bunch, and I'm really curious to hear about how you went from the 3 homes into how many flips have you done? Like over 150, something like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, those houses were a great start, and I continued to buy a bunch of houses and kind of had to figure out ways to get creative to continue to buy real estate. And part of that was flipping, being able to flip. I never really wanted to become a flipper. I actually kind of was forced to be a flipper in order to buy rental properties. And I just was good at the flipping. So I got caught up into it. I would have rather, and I wish I would have done it earlier, but whatever, I worked what I did, but I just got stuck in that flip mentality. But through that, I built my rental portfolio up. I continued to buy properties. I, at one time, had a portfolio of nearly 100 1 to 4 family properties. I've sold quite a few since. One's a 4-family, and I had a small like a 15-unit multifamily as well. So I've since sold some.
Wait. Hold on. You
Going
had
too
this
fast.
portfolio of 100. No. I just want to pause there for a second, because I think some people will hear that and say, oh, you had 100 of these houses. Why not just hold them forever, right? Couldn't that just be your retirement plan? You just hold that and you cash flow on those. Why sell, or why try to get into apartments?
Good question. And the answer is yes, I could have just stopped. I could have said 100 is enough, or just bought like a couple every year, or just continue to buy. Could have done that and probably would have been successful. But there's a couple problems with it. First of all, houses are hard to scale. There's pain points with single family, with 1 to 4 family properties. There's pain points. So you have to get beyond those pain points. And what I mean by that is, you've got times where we have to start hiring people, but it doesn't make any sense to hire. So there's those pain points, and I was at some of those pain points. And then it was, what do I really want to achieve? Am I just trying to sit on the beach myself and serve myself, or am I trying to establish something that's powerful, that's going to serve a lot of other people and really make a difference in the world? And that's what I decided I wanted to do. It was more than just me that I wanted to serve. It was, I wanted to try to make a real impact and real difference. So I saw that as I need to take a different route, and multifamily, or even larger commercial, but beyond single family, small multifamily was kind of the answer.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because I think for me too, when I really started to dig and ask myself, well, why? What am I trying to get to? Is it to, get to a point where I can just sit at home all day with my kids and just be a house mom? Is it so that I can have enough money to sit on a beach somewhere and never do anything ever again? And the further I dug, the more I realized that it was beyond just me, and that it was, that I wanted to be able to use the skills that I had to be able to help other people. And is so much of what drew Annie and I together to create Goodegg Investments. And I think it's just a really interesting process, because I think on the onset, a lot of people are thinking about just themselves and, how can I get myself out of this rut? And then once you say, okay, well, let's say for a moment that I did have all of that. And then what, for us, and, to be able to wake up every morning and know that we're, having an impact, not only in our immediate family's life, but, everybody that we touch, other people's lives that we touch, the communities that we're investing in, the renters, the tenants, and the property management teams. And I mean, it was exponential, and it's just so much more satisfying to wake up in the morning and, feel like you're having an impact. It's just everything for us. So
yeah, I agree.
And look, brought that up.
There's no right or wrong answer. Look, if you just want to build a portfolio and sit on the beach after you're done, or whatever you want to do, and that's fine. That's up to you, but it's got to be what drives you, right? You can't buy somebody else's dream. You have to have your own.
We'll get back to our conversation with Todd in just a minute.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate, but aren't sure you have the time or the desire to manage the investment? Perhaps you're afraid, like we were, that you'll make the mistake of choosing the wrong mortgage or the wrong team and lose your entire investment. Well, that's exactly why we created the Goodegg Investor Club. We do the work of identifying solid real estate investment opportunities in the best markets around the country, and then partner with you to acquire these investments, and then we'll all share in the returns. We'll identify the growing markets, strong, experienced teams, and the solid deals. We do all the heavy lifting of managing the tenants and the renovations, and as a passive partner, you get to enjoy all the benefits of investing in real estate: monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and the ongoing tax benefits. When we first discovered passive investing through real estate syndications, we realized it fit perfectly into our busy lives. We could put our money to work for our families, work less, and get more time back in our days so that we could focus on what matters most and discover our true passion and purpose in life. We've now helped hundreds of people invest passively in real estate syndications and are seeing the positive impact it's had on their lives. We invite you to partner with us by joining the Goodegg Investor Club today so you can start putting your money to work for you and get more time back in your day. Because we know that when people have more time in their days, they can do the true work they were intended to do, and the world will be a better place. To sign up for the Goodegg Investor Club, go to goodegginvestments.com/invest and we'll take it from there. That's goodegginvestments.com/invest.
And now, back to our chat with Todd Dexheimer.
So tell us about Pillars of Wealth Creation. What is it? Why did you create it? And what have you learned from having that around? It's Pillars of Wealth Creation. That's a podcast, right?
Yeah, so that's my podcast, Pillars of Wealth Creation. Really, the main purpose was there's a lot of real estate investors out there. I get the same type of questions for people who are real estate investors, and I wanted to help them out. One of the main kind of themes behind the podcast is helping real estate investors actually run their real estate company as a company. As there's so much more to it than just buying a deal. We want to actually continue to establish something, establish a company, put the systems and processes in place and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we kind of focus on more with Pillars of Wealth Creation, is establishing a business with pillars to create wealth that can, last a lifetime. So I've been doing it for like 2.5 years now. It's crazy. I think I'm releasing episode 250 pretty soon.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I know that on every episode you ask your guests what they think the pillars of wealth creation are.
Yep.
And so have you seen any common themes across all these conversations you've had?
Yeah. So I ask, what are your 3 pillars of wealth creation? I do get a decent amount of common themes. Actually, for episode 100, I believe, I kind of said, I wrote down what everybody's answers were, what some of the underlying themes were, and I lumped them into, I can't remember what it was, maybe 12 or 15 different things. And I think if I did the same thing and I went through episodes, 100 all the way through today, I would have probably not expand that list too much. It's all kind of the same thing. So yeah, you see a lot of the same, look, you've got to get educated and have that knowledge, really continue to always be curious and grow. And so that's really big. I think the systems and processes people talk about a lot, definitely. There's so many, I guess, different things that people will say. Some people will also take it a different way. So when they talk about pillars, they're talking about, what are the things that you invest in. So they'll talk about real estate and businesses and income and stuff like that. So I get various answers, but a lot of the same themes. I think that the 2 common ones are that, that continual education, and probably the other one would be networking is the other kind of big one that people say, look, establish your networks, grow them. Family is a big one too. A lot of people will talk about, look, you need to have strong connections with your friends and family and make that a priority in your life. That's the number one wealth that you can ever have.
Absolutely. And I can imagine that, as you've scaled from the 3 homes that you started with now to apartments and millions upon millions of dollars in real estate assets, there are points when you stop to think, oh, this is kind of hard. I'm learning something new. I got to grind through this. And so to have that network, that tribe around you to help you with those challenges, and also to know your why, which for many people is their family, and being able to have that flexibility and that time to spend with their family is so important to get you through all those hurdles along the way so you can really realize that vision that you are aiming for.
Yeah, my favorite, saying, and I should actually get it down to be established, but it's the Mike Tyson quote where he says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that's just so true in business. I mean, you guys have probably experienced it as well. You just there's times where you're like, oh my gosh, it would have been a lot easier just to teach it, right? I got this cushy, not saying there's not difficulties, but there's some challenges that happen and they're all on you, and you've got to figure out the ways around it. And I mean, building networks is definitely huge, and having good supportive people around you is extremely, extremely valuable. But It's kind of being an entrepreneur is still a lonely business. So you got plenty of punches along the way, and you just gotta keep on pushing.
I love that. I want to shift for a minute and talk about your family.
Yeah.
So you mentioned way back when was the birth of your daughter. How old is she now?
She's 10 years old, almost 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you have, how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids. So I've got
two kids.
A daughter that's the 10, almost 11-year-old. And then I got a son who's 6 coming up to 7. So they're a lot of fun. They're great. I mean, definitely a big part of this business, is just, it's a joy to have this business and have them. And, some of the things I really look forward to is having them continue to grow and see the business continue to grow, and maybe some of the pains that come along the way, but also the successes that come along the way, and hopefully be able to learn from that. And, I think it's just a positive influence on them to continue to do that. We're looking at my wife potentially starting her own business too. And so I think that would be really cool as well. And so it's just a joy. Like, my kids are great. I love them. Everybody loves their own kids. So hopefully at least.
So tell us, what are some things that you've implemented in your home family life in, teaching your kids about either real estate investing or, financial related matters? We're really big into, helping our kids, teaching our kids about the different things that we do as far as it relates to like syndications and rental properties and things like that. And so talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And we need to continue to do like a better job. Sometimes like, oh man, there's like learning opportunities that I didn't take advantage of, but I am always kind of talking to my kids about stuff. I try to relate to things, when we talk about rental properties and how the tenants are paying the rent. And we talk about how you got to treat them with respect and fairly. So I try to, not only implement like the money making, but I also want them to understand, like, it's not just about the money. It's also about the ethics behind it. It's about how you act as a person and a human being as well. So I think that's really important to continue to teach as well. But right now, like for us, our kids have certain chores they just have to do, but then they also have other jobs that will pay them for, and they have to then separate their money into a couple different buckets: a give, a spend, and a save. It's very cute because my daughter doesn't spend anything because she wants to start her own candy shop. So she's a budding entrepreneur. And then I think one of the things I do isn't necessarily financial, but I think it relates to it, is we try to just push our kids' boundaries, right? We try to make them uncomfortable. So we want to do things that are going to, where I think a lot of kids will maybe never experience. So, we will just push them a little bit farther all the time. And so those are some things that we try to do. We can always improve, right? But
is there any one thing in particular? I'm curious, what is the uncomfortable thing that maybe push them towards?
Man, it's hard to just pop one off the top of my head. But I mean, we do downhill skiing with the kids, and if they're scared to go down a run and I know it's not going to kill them, I'm going to make them go down the ski run. And almost always, sometimes I get, yelled at and told that was the worst thing they've ever done. But usually at the end, that was really fun. Let's do it again.
Right.
So it's like something like that, or, like we'll go out, we hike. We like to hike and camp. And so we'll go on like an 8-mile hike with our kids. We didn't, when my son was 4 years old, we're like pushing him to go on like 6-7 mile hikes. Most of his friends can hike for a quarter of a mile before they want to get picked up. And I don't pick my kids up. Like, well, you're hiking. Like, we're hiking. Oh, I want to get picked up. Okay, great. Well, let's get back and then I'll pick you up. So just like make them uncomfortable. There's nothing like crazy special that I do, but here's an example. I mean, we were camping this summer, and we were camping with my family, and I can remember as a kid, we would get too close to the edge, and I'm talking like 30 feet away, and my parents would be like, "Oh, don't go any closer." I allow my kids to go right to the edge. And I'm not stupid. Like, I'm not, if it's a dangerous edge and I know they're going to slip and fall, like, we're not going to. But if it's a sound, solid edge, they're going to go right to the edge and they're going to peek over it and they're going to lay down and like look over and see the water, whatever's on the other side of that edge. Like I'm going to allow them to do stuff like that, not be careless and reckless, but allow them to experience life and make sure they're not just scared of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Somebody's going to like email me with hate mail and say they
no,
but whatever.
No, I love that, because I think that there's so much of like this helicopter parenting is what they call it. And I'm definitely guilty of that. And
we're all guilty of it.
I would love to be able to let go a little bit more.
Yeah.
And because I do know that when my kids get older, that if I keep doing that they are going to live in this world of like, oh gosh, like what if I go do too close to the edge, or what if I do this, I'm scared. And that can translate into their personal life. It can translate into their life and business and not wanting to take risks. And, in business, being able to, feel confident as an entrepreneur to take risks is certainly something you need to be able to do. And so I love that. I need to be able to let go a little bit more and do that. So
if we got like 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you a story.
Yeah.
So this summer, we were up near the Canadian border. And it's a beautiful area, by the way, if anybody wants to go up there, right off Lake Superior. It's an amazing area. But my brother lives up there, and there's this river that we hiked through. So he says, well, there's this river. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, let's do it. Can my kids do it? He's like, maybe your kids could. Yeah, maybe. So I said, all right, let's do it. So we went and we bought some water shoes because we didn't have any. So we bought some stuff for us to be able to wear through the river. And we hiked this river, and it's like, not crazy stream, but there's times where it's up on my kids. It's probably just over waist deep or wading through it. It's some good rapids to it. And there's 5 waterfalls that we actually had to rock climb. And my kids did it with me and my wife and my brother. And it was just really cool to watch them experience this. And I mean, there was not like they were massive waterfalls, but there were some waterfalls that were probably 10 feet tall that they had to rock climb up. And, of course I'm at the bottom waiting for them to potentially fall. And my brother's up at the top, helping them if they need, but it was, instructions to him, like, look, don't touch them unless you see there's danger, but and that's how we do it. So that was really cool. We got done. I'm just like, that was awesome. And my kids loved it.
That's so cool. I love that.
What an incredible sense of accomplishment that your kids must have felt. I mean, to be able to have that chance to face a challenge like that and to be able to do it themselves is so powerful for them so early in life.
Yeah. And they just learned to like do things like, look, we can do it. Like we can push through it. And I think that hopefully relates to business and their careers as they go and saying, oh yeah, like adversity is no big deal.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. Should we jump into our impact round?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to ask 3 questions about investing for good. So the first question is, what is one way that your investments are helping you to live a better life?
Well, I think I've probably talked about it already, but just allows me to have that time freedom, flexibility. I think it's not even that I have like a bunch of extra time. I probably put in more hours a week than most people that have a job, but it allows that flexibility. So every single morning, unless I'm traveling out of state, but every single morning I wake my kids up in the morning and I, make sure they get ready for school and I see them off to the bus. So that's really cool. I love doing that. I'm typically the first one they see when they get home as well. And so that's great. I'm able to just be flexible. So I'm able to take my kids to their sporting events and be there for them. And you know what? When they go to bed, then I put in a couple extra hours of work. I wake up a little bit earlier. There's downtime during the week, put in a couple extra hours, but I've got that flexibility. So it's really allowed for that. I think that's been great.
Yeah, the flexibility part of it for me is huge to be able to take calls when it works for me and, move things around if I have to. And I
Yeah.
don't have to ask anyone if I can do that. I just do it because it's what I can do.
Yeah.
I'm curious, out of all the people that you've spoken to, is there a point at which you realize that you can go from, a W-2 to having this as a side hustle to doing this full time? Because I talk with so many investors all the time, and I get that question a lot. Like, well, how do I know when I can leave my job? And it's kind of a hard thing to answer because it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
Like some people may feel like they need to have a certain amount of money coming in already, or like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And you've got different responsibilities, right? If you have kids, I mean, obviously you've got to be able to feed your kids, right? If it's just you, or maybe you and your, spouse, well, you're pretty resilient especially as grown adults, right? And so I think there's different responsibilities, different aspects in life that you got to be more cautious a little bit than others. So if you're young and do it whenever, you can do it right away. And there's different reasons to maybe keep that job too. I mean, are you making a really, really good income where it makes sense to continue that income and build net worth? So really, it is a hard question. There's no, I think, magic answer. But the easiest answer is, well, once you can replace your earned income, or once you can basically get enough income to live on, then you should consider, okay, is it now a time, or why want to work? So I think that's the easiest way, is replace your income.
Yeah. I think also when you see that there's like a proven system that is starting to work, and you're like, oh, okay, like I've done 10 flips and I've made X dollars. And even though I haven't replaced my income from those 10 flips, like I see, a pattern, and imagine what I could do if I did this full time.
Right. If I went full time, I've already got it down. Now, if I went full time, I would far exceed my income. I think that's definitely a good point. Like, you don't necessarily have to replace the income, but if you see the trajectory that you can, look, we all have to live, we all have to eat. I'm not telling people to be, throw caution to the wind, but at the same time, you also have to take action. If you want to take massive action, or if you want to actually do this, you have to take massive action. Eventually, you're going to have to make a decision.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So second question is investing in others. So what is one investing hack or one investing secret that you might be able to share with our audience that will help them sort of catapult their investing journey and get them to where they're trying to go faster?
What's one thing they can invest in?
Or what's like one like investment hack or strategy that like maybe you wish you knew, like after all these years, like 10 plus years of investing, is there one thing that like you might be able to share that is like, I wish I knew that, 10 years ago?
There's, I would say the one thing, and this is something I did know, but I didn't end up doing. I would say the one thing that works really, really well is just that I think they do call this house hacking, where you buy a house and you have a tenant living in the other unit, or maybe the in-law suite. So I think that is huge as far as getting started. It not only it saves you a ton of money, but it allows you to get your first rental property. The one thing I would caution people is just make sure it can cash flow, especially if you're buying a duplex. Like, does it actually make you money when you move out? Because you're eventually going to want to move, right? Life is going to eventually move on. And so you do want to make sure it financially makes sense. The other one is what I did, and I bought properties that were a wreck, outdated, and renovated them, and then sold them and went on to the next one. And you can do that twice every 5 years, not pay any taxes on it.
Love that. That last one is a really good one that I don't think a lot of people think about. I actually read that in a Facebook group the other day, and someone had asked, like, what's the best way to, grow my wealth while buying a primary home? And somebody had suggested that. So yeah.
It works so well. We were able to do that several times. And like I said, now we live in a pretty nice house, and our mortgage is almost nothing.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. Last one is investing in the world. So what is one thing that you're doing in your investments that are helping to make the world a better place?
Man, I guess there's several. Can I mention more than one?
Absolutely.
All right. So a couple things. I mean, it's all about trying to provide value for other people. So my podcast obviously provides value for other people. I've got a real estate conference in the Twin Cities that I host that hopefully provides good value for other people. So I think that's really important, just trying to provide education and value. I do coaching as well. I know you guys do as well, and that really helps provide value for other people. Then the other thing is, volunteering for organizations that I believe in. So my church, giving to the church and volunteering for our church, junior achievement, volunteering, giving to them, just organizations that I think are really worthy for me to believe, or that do a lot of good things. Mm-hmm. There's so many out there. So you just have to pick like the ones you're most passionate about. But just being able to give other people, opportunities that maybe they don't have that you were blessed with, I think is so important. And so that's kind of what I look at it as. And I really like educational, like I like junior achievement because it really helps educate people that otherwise wouldn't really know what's out there. And I think that's so important.
Yeah. And that goes back to like the flexibility, like you were saying, of what your investments allow you to do. If you're working a regular W-2, you don't have the bandwidth, like I think just physically and mentally, to go out there and think about how can I give more. I mean, you can't, some people do, and that does happen. But I feel like being an entrepreneur really allows you to have that flexibility to say, okay, I'm going to commit like 2 hours a week, and you can sort of fit that into your schedule in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah.
Well, Todd, you were pretty much the epitome of investing for good, taking your experience and sharing that knowledge with others, empowering other people to get into it, and also investing your time and your money into furthering the community around you as well. And I'm sure that our listeners are going to want to learn more. So Todd, what's the best place that people can go to learn more about all that you're doing and connect with you?
Yeah, a couple of ways. So my main website's venturedproperties.com, venturedproperties.com. And there I've got like a free report people can download. It's a lot of good information about multifamily, about syndication, kind of put together, and they can definitely check out what we got going on that website. Then there's my podcast, Pillars of Wealth Creation. They can definitely go on there. And then I got 2 more places, so bear with me. I've got Coach with Dex. So if they want any information on that, they can definitely go there. And the last thing is I've got a real estate conference coming up, and that's in April 24th and 25th in Minneapolis. And I would love to have people there. It's going to be an amazing conference. It was fantastic last year. I got nothing but awesome reviews. And so I'd love to have people there. They can go out onto our website, check out information to get more information on it and learn what it's all about. It's nreconference.com, nreconference.com. It's the North Star Real Estate Conference. Love to have people there. And right now we got an early bird discount. They can just type in early bird. I know that was a lot.
Cool.
You'll put it on the show notes, though, right?
Yes, absolutely. We'll put all of that in the show notes so everybody can learn more, and definitely check out Todd's podcast. It is fantastic.
Thank you.
And Todd's conference as well. All right, Todd Dexheimer, CEO of Venture D Properties and host of the Pillars of Wealth Creation podcast. Todd, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, a lot of fun, and I really appreciate what both of you are doing. And I hear only great things about you, by the way, from everybody around. Everybody knows who you are and thinks the world of you. So you guys are doing fantastic things. And
thank you.
I really love watching you guys grow and evolve. And so it's been really fun.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Investing for Good, the #1 podcast for people like you who are investing to build a legacy for their families, create a meaningful and intentional life by design, and impact the world around them. For more resources, check out goodegginvestments.com/podcast. And be sure to join the Investing for Good Facebook community. And don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can continue to bring you amazing new conversations every week. Until next time, keep investing for good.